Now, you emphasize the importance of focusing on positive impacts around the world. Now, how do you curate your stories and to ensure that we have this positive feeling and vibe within us?
Yeah, so I really, when I'm searching for the news, I'm searching for a lot of it comes to me through different sources and recommendations, which is the most wholesome way. If I'm finding it, I'm really looking for people that are just out of their own back trying to make a big difference in people's health, in people's happiness, in people's perspective, and how they want to approach themselves and their own health and their own relationships. And I just try the same way that the mainstream news would amplify everything negative and down about that story. I kind of go the exact same strength in the opposite direction. And I just try and find every single thing that is bright and happy and productive about this person. And I just put it all into a thing because my news isn't just the action of what they've done. I like to get a lot deeper into what has built them to think this way, to want to go out and do that extra for their fellow people, and what work they've had to put in along the way as well to be able to put themselves in that position to be able to do so. Because a lot of the people that I hear are, I want to do something good, but I don't know how, or I don't know where to start, or I don't have a lot of money, or I don't have a lot of followers. But one of my favorite stories, which is actually this one right here, I put it as the first story on my first paper because I just loved it so much. And this guy, he's from my hometown. His name's Rocco, and he had an experience where he was trying to take his life at a certain point in stage. And while he was working through that, he was at his mum's house and he noticed it. There's a lot of bridges in my hometown, which is quite a popular spot. And he went out, he was looking at these bridges, and he just couldn't bear the thought of anybody going through that same pain as he was going through. And he just wrote down all of these words, notes, compassion, poems, phrases, little letters. And he went out in all of the bridges around the whole area, like extended the suburb, like town after town after town. And he stuck all of these stories and notes in the middle of bridges so that if people came and they were in a very depressed state and they were suicidal of thought, then they had the chance to look at these messages and read them and have an extra 5 seconds of pause that could completely shift them into a different direction and not want to do it anymore. And almost immediately, he got so many messages because he put his Instagram handle at the bottom. He just put them in a poly wallet to keep them out of the rain. And he got so many messages of people, and it was mainly men. And they were like, I'm at home with my wife and my children now eating breakfast because I read your note. And I thought, whoa. And there were even children. There was a little boy that went missing, I think, for 4 days. And he had actually gone to the bridge, taken this letter, buggered off with it, read it, sat with it for a bit, and then decided to go back home and not do anything harmful to himself. And I thought, this kind of impact, if someone was to jump off a bridge and take their own life, that would be all over the news. And that would be there. And it would be another one kind of ticked off on the suicide list and how many people do this. But, and I think if when you lose somebody, how heavily does that impact your world? You know, how does that heavily impact your friends and extended family, and then the people that they know as they're going through that trauma of loss as well. And now think of how much of a magnitude that effect is on that same circle when a person has been saved, and when you've got that acknowledged gratefulness that their presence is still here when it couldn't have been. And all that was done was a note on a piece of paper in a plastic wallet, zip tied to a bridge. And I thought, it's amazing. And over 100 lives have been saved by that directly, and how many more over. And I thought, that's news, because suicide is a really big topic that not many people want to talk about, and not many people understand or in like the prevention space. And I thought, that's just so good because it's basically free, it's imaginative, it's so caring and so community involved. And I just love it. And I thought, and that's inspired a lot more people. I've got the most messages off that story than I've ever had off any other one. And it's just so powerful. And I think, awesome, people saying, I've gone and left a note here. I've thought of different ways I can send a message. I've shown this story to blah, blah, blah. And I thought, awesome, that's the effect. Rather than someone thinking that it's a valid option, they might read a story of someone taking their life and think, oh, I'm also feeling that way. Maybe I'll do that as well. And think, what's the point? They lose that hope filter, right? But
Yeah.
by seeing that in an inexpensive way of literally saving hundreds of lives in with very little effort, really. Not putting his efforts down, but in terms,
Yeah.
anyone can do that. And I thought, yeah, that's amazing.
What a beautiful story. Wow. I wish I would have heard that story here in the US. We get nothing but garbage. That's a beautiful story. Just, because I've experienced suicide attempts twice in my life, and none
Yeah,
of them are a bridge, but from like drinking and feeling depressed and taking pills and bad relationships. And that's what I had experienced. But I
yeah,
remember this one guy, because we have the Golden Gate Bridge here in San Francisco. And I went to college over here in San Jose State, and there was a guy. We were in a drama class together, and to do an icebreaker, we went ahead and had to like write down three things about us, and then we had to figure out which one was a lie or false, right? So he wrote some things down, and I saw on there it said like jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and survived. So of course I thought that one was false. I was like, oh, this one's not real. But it was real. He tried to commit
wow,
suicide and survived. The Golden
wow,
Gate Bridge, I was just like, you have different plans now. You have something else going on in your life. And now he's actually helping and mentoring and speak. He's a speaker and author, I think, and helping people who are struggling with ideas of suicide and just,
yeah,
or feeling depressed or have anxiety or any of that, because that all can stem down to suicide. And so I was just like, wow. And so it's so neat how we take our our pain, and we turn it into our beautiful purpose. And so
absolutely.
that's a beautiful, that what you do, and then sharing his story and what he's been doing, is how many lives have been saved. That is just amazing. I love hearing stories like that. It's like, oh, it warms my heart.
I love exactly what you just said of turning, I can't remember whether you said something like just turning a trauma or a pain into
Yeah.
a process like that. And I think that's so important. It's so easy to sit and dwell and be consumed by whatever negativity you're in, and to be able to find a way to use that to help other people not go through that same pain is, I just, yeah, it's incredible. There's people that are out there that are doing this. It's awesome.
That's beautiful.